My name is Hannah Pratt. I am one of the REMAX University instructors at World Headquarters based out of Denver. That is my email address up there. So please feel free to reach out with any questions, follow-up, feedback. I'd love to hear from you. This is stuff that gets me really, really excited. And I would love to have further conversations with you all and dive into this because it really is truly great content. And I see I'm getting some audio help. All right, so with that, my clicker wants to work. Welcome. Let's work on some housekeeping items first. All right, so very first thing, Q&A. All of it's done in the app this year. So while questions come up throughout the session for this next hour or so, to just pop your questions into the chat. We will save some time at the end to address as many of those questions as we possibly can. There is a lot of content in this conversation, and I don't want you all to miss anything or be curious about anything additional without getting some additional insight from me. Or just further conversation for next time. So please feel free to pop them in the chat. We will address as many as we can at the end. Second, get those minds ready to work. Keep those minds open. There is a lot of new content. Just a show of hands. How many of you have heard of emotional intelligence before? Other than the title. All right. Good. So you may have been exposed. Now, how many of you have actually dove into the science of emotional intelligence by a show of hands? Oh, I see a lot of hands. I like it. Good. I'm glad to see there are hands raised there, but I'm also glad to see that there are not. Because this is a newer topic. In the last 20 to 30 years, that may seem like a lot of years, but from the standpoint of this content, it's still really, really new. There's a lot of science being studied behind it, and there is still so much more to be developed from this content. Now I'm going to walk away and you can still hear me. Yay! All right. But not only do I want you to have that open mind and the ideas, perspective, be ready to engage in the app with any questions that you might have. But also, as I've already done, I'm going to ask for some show of hands, some shout outs to some things that come to mind. I want you all involved in this conversation. This is not just me talking at you for an hour, as much as that is some of what we will definitely have happen. I want you all involved. I want to know what you go through. And I want to hear from you all. Lastly, and the most important part, before we go any further, set your intention. You chose to be here for a reason. Whether it was an exciting title, something new, the door was open, there was a seat available, whatever it is, you sat down for some reason. What is that? Why are you here? Write it down, because that's your goal. That's your goal takeaway from this conversation. And it's important to set that up front so that you can recognize the aha moments that fit that intention. It's very, very intentional that I ask you to do that. So let's get started with a very simple poll. Have you ever, during a real estate transaction, encountered a heightened emotion? It wasn't supposed to be a joke. About 50 in one day. But from who? From clients? Yep. From the other agent? Yeah. What about from your colleagues? It happens, right? We all face some pretty heavy emotions in the real estate business. The buying and selling process is an emotionally driven process. I can speak to experience. I have a very new new perspective this year at R4. I just sold my house a month ago. And I just went under contract 5 days ago. And I've got to tell you, I have not cried this much going through this process ever before. It is a lot, and it's things that I didn't know. And I work for REMAX. Y'all, that's scary. But even with all that kind of insight, I don't know what you all go through every single day. You experience so much. Your clients experience so much. So how do we leverage that? How do we take that knowledge and leverage it in our business and in our strategies to be more successful? So just by a show of hands, I know it was funny, but I actually want to see a show of hands. How many of you have encountered a heightened emotion, good and bad, in the real estate business? Yeah, pretty much every hand, right? That is your reality. That is what you live and breathe in, so why not have a conversation around it? Right? It's a big part of it. My goal takeaways, my intention for being here and bringing this content to you is number one, to provide a better understanding of what is emotional intelligence. I know what intelligence is. We talk about the mind, we talk about our trainings and learnings and development. Great. But we're going to talk emotions? Are you serious? Oh, absolutely yes. But I want you all to be able to walk out of here feeling even more confident in the content and understanding how emotional intelligence can seriously impact your business. And then second, the system on how to be more productive in your sales and how you emotionally connect with those around you in the business. Not just your clients, not just your broker owners, your managers, your colleagues. Right? You're all sitting in the room. Y'all are colleagues, whether you like it or not. You have to work alongside one another, whether that's through referrals, whether that's being the agent on the other side of the transaction. So how do we become more successful and implement a system to be more successful by understanding emotions? So with that, what does it take to be the best? Obviously, you know what my opinion is, but just shout out some answers. What does it take to be best agent in the real estate market? Just shout it out. They got to remember you. Relationships, follow up, conversations. What was that? Consistency, listening. You guys are taking my presentation. Do you understand that? Action. Yes, the goal of training is action. So what do I all want you to do? I want you to take action after this. But what does it take to be the best? There are so many different factors that you all just shouted out. But what is the one thing that can separate you in the biggest way possible? Is there a right answer to that? Emotional intelligence. But there's 4 categories to consider. And they're all right there for you, but I'm going to explain them a little bit more. There's IQ. That's our intelligence quotient. That's what we're talking about, our innate knowledge. Right? We're born with it kind of a thing. Right? It's static. Then there's the technological quotient. So with technological quotient, what we're talking about is, yes, technology, but how are you weaving it into your business? How are you leveraging it to increase your life, increase your business? Do you have the skills to do so? To adapt with technology, because it's one of the hardest things to do. Technology is fast-paced. Is that what makes you the best? Is knowing how to adapt and adopt technology. Then there's acquired quotient. So this is basically what makes IQ relevant. This is training, learning, development. You all sitting right here is considered acquired quotient. These are the things that we take in and not only take in, but process and put into action. Okay, so that's the acquired quotient. Is it the person who takes the most trainings in a year? Is that what makes you the best? Or last but certainly not least, emotional quotient, or EI, emotional intelligence. You will hear me intertwine those two. EQ and EI are essentially the same. Emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. So what is it that makes you the best real estate agent in your market? Well, I'm here to tell you there are some statistics behind it. And EQ dominates the charts. And do you want to know how? There was a study conducted of Fortune 500 companies that found that salespeople with high emotional intelligence outperformed those with medium to low EI by 50%. Take that number in, 50%. Look at your sales in 2020. Would 50% increase make a difference? Oh, there we go. 50%. Who wouldn't want an increase of 50% in their business? That's huge. Just because we learn how to understand emotions. There's statistic. Emotional intelligence now accounts for 80% of the qualities that companies look for. This is not just real estate. These are things that go across corporations, organizations, across the world. It makes a world of a difference to have emotional intelligence. So, some of you may be sitting here and wondering, are we really about to talk about the mushy-gushy, nitty-gritty feelings? And I'm here to tell you 110% yes, because they matter. At the end of the day, emotions matter, especially, if not irrevocably, in real estate. People are picking their lives up and moving it. That's a huge deal. Whether it's a relocation, whether it's because of a corporate relocation or they're choosing to, they're moving up in their lives, they're expanding their families, the dog needs a bigger backyard because that's what ours needs. Those are qualities that make a difference to your clients. So how do we service them better knowing those things? Knowing that their emotions are playing into their decisions. Typically, your emotions are driving your decisions. Your logic then comes in and justifies it on the back end. So if emotions are driving their decisions, why focus on just the logic? Right? This makes sense. It checks all the boxes. Great. But if the emotions are not there and you're not seeing what's going on with them, you might miss a massive step in the process. Or you might be missing something that they're feeling that is throwing the entire transaction off. Has anyone ever toured a client through a house that checked every single box and that client walked out and said no? It happens. They want a 3-car garage, a big backyard, 4 bedrooms, open concept kitchen. It's all there. But they walk out and feel defeated. If you miss that step, that could be a huge loss in a transaction. Right? So think about look into your past experiences with your clients, past transactions that you've closed, and start to pinpoint, oh, I realize that emotion now. I didn't know it was there before. But now you have the ability to walk out and say, I can identify these things because now I have a better understanding of what emotional intelligence is. And yes, it does involve the nitty-gritty, mushy-gushy feelings. Yes, the crying. Yes, the happiness, the tears of joy, the extreme levels of varying different emotions. But understanding them, being able to leverage them and put them into a system in your business could potentially lead to increasing your emotional intelligence, which will ultimately guide you towards increasing your business and knowing your clients on a deeper level. So let's define emotional intelligence. Now that I've talked about it for 10 minutes, what is it? Emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize, that's a key word by the way, with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. There are 3 subsections to this that are going to be in our conversation for the rest of this time. First one is understand. Second and third are manage and use. So if there's anything you're going to write down or take notes on, these are your 3 things. Understand, manage, and use in that order. And just so you all are aware, these slides and a handout that I will talk about in a little bit are in the app for you to download. You have all reign on these. So let's take it down a little bit further. So understand, manage, and use are the 3 key disciplines of emotional intelligence. We've now taken those one step further with 5 core competencies, and we're going to dive into all 5. So the very first one that's tied to understand is self-awareness. Plain and simply put, understanding yourself, becoming more aware, detecting and identifying your own emotions. Then we'll look at self-regulation. That's where we start talking about the manage element. Starting to, now that we have a better understanding of our own emotions and the motivations that come from them, how do we control them? How do we leverage our knowledge to better provide a service, a higher experience to our clients? And then lastly, with empathy, social skill, and motivation, we talk about use. This is really where we get into the client implementation. Now we know ourselves better. We are better at managing how we communicate our own emotions and the things that we all go through, because we're all human. We all have those emotions. Now that we have this better understanding all around, let's actually leverage it in our business with our clients. So let's start with understand. How do we leverage in the self-awareness, the core competency of self-awareness? Brené Brown, in her book Dare to Lead, said understanding emotions in others and communicating our understanding of these emotions requires us to be in touch with our own feelings first. It all starts with us. How can we better understand others if we don't know ourselves? Identify, who are we as our real estate agent? Who are we outside of real estate? Do some of those characteristics overlap? Do we see some variable differences? A lot of those things will translate between both worlds. But understanding yourself is the key to better understanding your clients. Who in here has bought a home before? Who in here has sold a home before? You've been right alongside your clients this whole time. It's very easy, we were just having this conversation right before this, it's very easy to get lost in the transaction, the paperwork, the contracts, the legalities. But if we take a second, we back up and we say, this is what the clients could be feeling, could be going through. I might be able to help them through this process a little bit easier and not make them feel so stressed, or ensure that when they go under contract, they're not getting over the top excited and publishing it everywhere, because let's be real, we like to tell everybody when these things happen, but reminding them there are other steps to go through, right? Things can still happen. So it's good to be aware, set the expectations up front so that they know exactly what to expect. And it helps them understand their emotions are going to go through this, some ebbs and flows. They're going to be on that bell curve of emotions. They're going to be up here one day and then way down here the other. They may go from here to here in 1 hour and back again. It's very easy to do in this process. So being able to plan for some of that, set the expectations up front, could help the process go a little smoother. But we have to start with ourselves first. So how do we do that? 3 steps in understanding, in the self-awareness process: detect, identify, and understand. So when we talk about detecting, really what we're saying is recognizing oncoming emotions. What do you feel? Who's happy right now? Who's sad right now? I really hope I don't see a hand right now. Otherwise, I'm gonna try and give you a big hug from here. Who's ecstatic that they're at R4 in Orlando right now? Woo. And to my people on virtual who are at home, are you ecstatic to be watching and being here with us, even if not in this room? Right? We're all experiencing different emotions right now. We're going through a lot. Whose feet hurt? Mine. Right? So think about the variabilities of emotions within one day. Now add a real estate process on top of that, and you all have to work through a lot of things as real estate agents during these processes, so you are facing your own emotions. Challenge yourself to start detecting those emotions. Is it stress? Are you feeling it in your shoulders? Do you have a headache? Have you been on your feet for too long? Have you had any food? So are you hungry? As simple as it may sound, stop what you're doing anytime you're feeling something, which shouldn't hopefully be too tough, because you should be feeling something at all times, even if it just So detecting starts with just feeling that emotion and recognizing it's there. Then we go into identify. What is it? What does it mean? What's causing it? How did we get here? Really looking into the depth of the emotion itself. It's not just happy, sad. It's not. There are so many definitions of happy. We all have different perceptions of what happy is, of what sad is. Go deeper than that. Look into the emotion and say, what do I actually feel? Is it happiness because I am at R4? Maybe I'm just ecstatic that I'm being a part of something bigger than myself. Or I'm learning being at R4. But it's more than that. Dive into the emotions and identify, first of all, where is it coming from? And what is it? Put a word to it. Name it. And then the last piece is understand. So recognizing the root of the emotion. So we're diving into the depths of what the emotion itself is and what caused it to be there. But not only that, then we have to start anticipating the impact that emotion can have, especially when we're working with our clients. This is why we start with self-awareness. Understanding that your emotions impact your clients just as much as theirs impact you. You might be stressed. Going into a showing with a client, do you think your client can pick up on that? 100% yes. So if you can go through the process of detect, identify, and understand, bring self-awareness higher to your mind, to the forefront, you will start to see. It's very scary actually when it hits. It's an unbelievable moment when you start to realize what your emotion, the emotional impact it has on others, and how you can start to leverage it. So it's why you have to really start with the self-awareness piece, focusing on where am I, who am I, and what is going on with me, so that I can start to see the impact I have on others. Because at the end of the day, you have such a great impact on your clients, and they do on you as well. So the happier they are, right, the more within the process they are with you and understanding what's going on in that process, the more willing they will be to continue pushing forward and not feel maybe some of those stressed out feelings or any of the sad things. Markets can be crazy. Inventories can be low. From a buyer's perspective, that is extremely frustrating. So being able to say, this is what the process is going to look like to help you get through this. This is what I'm going to do because I don't want you to feel this way. And understand, empathize with them, relate to them. But it starts with understanding ourselves first. And that really that wraps up the understand discipline, right? It's all about understanding yourself, self-awareness. So then let's actually talk about manage. And what we're talking about with manage is the core competency of self-regulation. Kind of self-explanatory, but it's all about managing your own emotions and the impact they can have on others around you. So Michael Ferguson defined self-regulation as the ability to control one's feelings and impulses in order to prevent negatively disrupting the emotional state of others. This ability also dictates how well a person can emotionally adapt to changing situations. Adapting is huge. You never know what you're going to get back once an offer has been submitted. As a seller, if you're getting a lot of offers, it's a changing situation. You may not have expected that. Ensuring that the clients understand you are supporting them and driving them through this process. It's an important piece to take that awareness, that understanding of yourself, and now learn, how do we manage it? Manage the impact we have on others around us so we can help ourselves adapt in changing situations as well as our clients. Typical responses to criticism. It is not just criticism. It's tough situations in general, especially when they're targeted at you. Has anyone ever faced criticism in their life? Some don't want to raise their hands right now, but they're shaking their heads yes. It happens. It's a part of learning, right? How we respond to them can tell us a lot about somebody. And there are typical responses. And those are, first and foremost, defending. Who's defended themselves before? Whether they were right or wrong, doesn't matter. You've come to defend yourself. Absolutely. It happens. Making excuses. Ran out of time. Couldn't do it. Forgot. It happens. Again, we're human. That's the whole point of this. Remembering at the end of the day, your clients are human just as much as you are. Right? Minimizing the problem. Oh, it's not that bad. It happens. Attempting to rationalize. Oh, well, it's fine. It'll work. We'll make it work. Sidestep the issue altogether. It's very easy to skirt around a problem at hand. Or lastly, shifting the blame. Not my fault. I didn't do it. Somebody else. Not my name on it. It happens. I see fingers over here. She did it. It happens. But learning from those experiences make a huge difference when you are working through very emotionally driven processes, especially with your clients. If something doesn't get done, somebody's coming to look for who's going to own up to it. It's going to happen. So ask yourself, in tough situations, how would my client feel if I took a typical response to a situation during the buying or selling process? How would they feel? To be blamed, oh, it's somebody else's fault. It's not my fault. Doesn't look good. Right? Could you potentially lose their business by taking one of these responses? Defending yourself, making excuses, completely sidestepping the issue? Could you lose their business? Leverage these two questions in tough situations. If I respond like this, how will my client feel? How would I feel if I were the client and my agent did this to me? Maybe not so great, so why would you do it to your client? A lot of this turns into an introspective conversation with yourself. The first two disciplines of emotional intelligence are really focused on you all individually. And having those tough conversations with yourself, with a partner, with a coach even, and saying, did you do what you said you were going to do? Did you learn from this experience? What did you take from this? How are you going to better it for next time? I challenge each and every single one of you to ask yourself the hard questions and write your answers down. And we'll talk about some strategies in a little bit about how to go about building these strategies and these disciplines and growing your emotional intelligence. But I challenge you all, start having some of these emotional conversations with yourself. It's very easy to forget about us, you, during the real estate process. There's a lot to be done. There's a lot of boxes to be checked and lines to be signed. It's easy to forget about yourself through that process. So as you start through this emotional intelligence journey, challenge yourself in your next transaction. Maybe you're going through one right now. Maybe you have clients calling you right now. Who's had a phone call from a client so far? Yeah. So now that we're having this conversation, now that maybe you've answered some of those phone calls, those text messages, those emails, how would you do it differently? Would you approach it differently? Or do you feel you handled it at the best way you could, knowing what you know now? So let's take it a little bit further, and we're going to get into a little bit of science of this. There are two brains, two different types of approach brains. The emotional brain and the thinking brain. Also could be talked about as head versus heart, emotion versus logic. Has anyone taken a personality profile in here before? Highly recommend it. It's a huge learning experience for yourself. Learn about yourself. Are you emotional? Are you more logic focused? Are you maybe a good balance in between? It's good to know where you are. But from the science perspective, we're talking the emotional brain and the thinking brain. And what we mean by that is you really do have two different approaches to everything that happens to you and every experience that you face. Typically, what do you think is the very first thing to respond in any situation, good or bad? Emotion or logic? Emotion? Yes. 100% yes, and the answer is kind of on the screen as well. Because it takes the rational mind a moment or two longer to register and respond than it does the emotional mind, the first impulse in an emotional situation, it's the heart. Your heart's not there to think about it. Your heart's there to respond. The rational brain takes another second. And it's very quick to make rash judgments and rash responses without leveraging a moment to let your thinking brain think about it. Has anyone ever responded quickly and then regretted what they did very quickly? You don't have to raise your hands. I see a few of you did. It's a hard question, and it's one, again, that I challenge you all to ask yourselves, because it is a tough question. Ask yourself every time you run into a changing situation, how did I handle it last time? What do I want to do now? That's better for me and for my client. It's very easy to get lost into this quick response. And there is a name for that. It's called a hijacking. I'll say that again, neural hijacking, or also known as an amygdala hijacking. What that really is encompassing is that quick rash response. What those hijackers find as is a center in the limbic brain proclaims an emergency, good or bad, doesn't matter, recruiting the rest of the brain to its urgent agenda. Your emotion takes completely over, washes out your ability to rationally think about what's happening, and it takes over completely with your response. It does not give your rational brain time to think through it. To think, is this the right choice to make? Is this a good idea? Or is this not a great idea? It does not give it time. You get hijacked and you don't even know it. It's very easy for these things to happen, especially in stressful situations, especially even in exciting situations. Has anyone had a client sign a contract, super excited, and then 30 minutes later go, uh-oh, or call you the next morning and say, I didn't read that. Can you explain what that means to me? It's so easy to get caught up in our emotions that we don't even realize we're doing it. And there is literal science behind it that proves it's not just us. Our brain is literally taken over by our emotions. Emotions make decisions, our logic justifies it. Because our emotions respond like that. Our thinking brain, the rational brain, it takes a minute to think through all of what happens. It's very easy to get lost in the emotions of the real estate transaction, good and bad. So it's important to understand how are you responding in these hijack moments. Right? It's an emotional explosion of sorts. It's very easy to get caught up into it. The triggered reaction before the thinking brain even has a chance. And it's not all distressing. It's not all bad. As I was saying, right? They get excited. They just found their dream home and they glaze over at times. That's a lot of words on one paper to read in a contract. When they're that excited, it's very easy to just say, yep, I signed on the dotted line. I'm done. Let's do this. But there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot of conversation that needs to go into it. And it's very easy for you all to get caught up in their emotions. You want to be excited with them. Have you ever been excited with your clients? when they found that dream home, yeah, you're building relationships with these people. So it's so important to know what is going through their mind. But not only that, how do I get caught up into it? And am I getting too far caught up into it to where I'm getting hijacked and I miss things as their real estate agent? Again, it's all about that introspection and talking about the hard stuff with yourself, with others, and saying, I don't like how I did this. I want to do better. Give me your perspective. How would you have done this? How have you done it in the past? Look at everyone around you in this room right now. They are all right there with you. Barely 4 of you moved your heads. That was hilarious. Everyone in this room is now a partner in this process. It is a process, and it's not something that will be perfected. Let me just tell you, I've been studying this for almost 2 years, and I still catch myself, and I'm like, what did I just do? I take it back. I'm sorry. But if we're not learning from those experiences, we're not getting anywhere. We're not growing from these learning lessons. So have the tough conversations with yourself. Talk about those hijacks you've had in the past and how you're going to make them better. So then we go from understanding ourselves with some self-awareness to managing. How do we manage our emotions and our reactions in situations so that we can best provide the highest experience to our clients and not bring maybe our overexcitement for certain things or our stress into their process so that they don't feel it with us. Emotions are palpable. Can you tell I'm excited? Kind of? Yeah. It's easy to see it. It's easy to feel excitement. It's easy to feel someone's stress, someone's sadness, and you want to be there for them. This is a relationship-based business. So how do we take our understanding of ourselves and our own emotions and how we impact others with our emotions and use it to benefit all parties involved? And that's where we get into the third discipline, use. And that's centered around the 3 core competencies, the last 3: social, skill, motivation, and empathy. Michael Ferguson, he has a lot of articles, by the way, if you want to read them. And that is not the right, that's fine. Really what we're focusing on with use is we're talking about the client implementation. How do we take what we've learned and leverage it with our clients? And the way we do that is those 3 core competencies. So let's actually talk about what are those 3: social, skill, motivation, and empathy. And we're going to dive into each of these, but I'll briefly define roughly what they mean. Social skill, building the relationship, rapport. Communication style, learning their personality type. Maybe you have them take a personality assessment so you can learn about them at a deeper level. Do you ask the questions to your clients when they are in their selection process? Who are you? What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What's your birthday? What's your favorite chocolate? Or what's your favorite candy? Do you like coffee? Okay, who's your favorite coffee provider? Do you ask those questions? You should. Get to know them. Leverage personality assessments. Understand their preferences. Texting, emailing, calling, Instagramming, Pinterest, Facebook. Where are they? Where do they focus their attention? If they're on a computer all day, they may not want to have a Zoom call. Anybody else? They may not. But if that's their best comfort level, we got to make it work. If they're on a trip, a phone call may be better, especially in time zone. Setting expectations and saying, while you're on this, how would you like me to communicate with you? Is it text? Is it email? Is it a phone call? Is it all 3? Sometimes some people do like that because maybe they check a text message and forget about it. They check an email and they forget. But if they get a phone call and they're able to pick it up, they have that third opportunity. All right, so figuring out who are they, let's build a relationship, let's build a connection so that we can make this as the best experience they could possibly have in the buying and selling process, an already emotionally charged process. Then there's motivation. What's their why? Why are they doing it? Why are they selling? Why are they buying? Why are they moving? What is causing this decision to happen? There's going to be emotion there. Look for it. Listen for it. It may be an emotionally charged decision. Maybe they don't want to, but they have to. Maybe they're moving because they want to move closer to their families. They want to move away from their families. Whatever their motivation is, it's their why. What are they working towards? Their aspirations. Just like you all have aspirations, taking your businesses to the next level, growing your skill set, growing your emotional intelligence. Your clients have the same things. What are they? Ask them those questions. Dive into it. If they don't give you much, keep probing, that's not a word. Probing for the answer that you're looking for, but go in with the intention to get an answer. What does that answer look like for you? Because the more you know, the more you can support them in the ways that they need it. Everyone's got different approaches, different styles, different preferences. So making sure we are supporting them at the highest level possible only means a better experience for them, which equals a better experience for you all. It's an emotional process even for you. The last piece is empathy. How many people have heard that word at least once during these last 2 days of our 4 so far? Right now, today's technically the first. You've already heard it. Adam Contos talks about it on his podcast all the time. Empathy is key. If anyone was in with Rich Sands this afternoon at 1 o'clock about creating a buyer abundance, empathy was one of those top tips. Empathy is huge, and it plays a massive role in emotional intelligence with clients, with others that you work with in the business, working with other agents on the other side of the deal, working with the buyers, the sellers, all of it. Empathy is key. We're talking about vulnerability. At the end of the day, empathy is all about sharing vulnerability. We all have it. We're all human. Who's made a mistake in their life? Yep, we all have. And all it takes is leveling with people. I'm here for you. What can I do for you? How can I support you best through this process? Connecting with them via experiences. You may have gone through a similar process. Tell them about it. Have them tell you stories. Again, stories tell a lot. They tell you about the motivations. They tell you a lot in building the relationship, connecting with them, sharing core values. And it will also lead a good eye into their emotions, their why of being there, what they might feel throughout the process. One of the first things our agent identified with us, my fiance and I, very different approaches. I am the energetic, I want to do this, I'm happy. Him, he sat in the chair with his arms crossed. And she knew. She knew right away exactly what was going to happen. I was going to be the gung-ho one. Let's do this now. I'm ready to put the house on the market right now. He was like, I don't know about that. That's a scary situation as an agent. You have 2 very different people sitting together, making one life decision. That's intimidating for you all as an emotion to take on. But if you can recognize it and have a plan for it ahead of time, you're way better off. You're ahead of every other agent in the market. That one question we started off at the beginning, what makes you the best? What's the one thing that makes you the best? Emotional intelligence. Identifying, being able to say, oop, I've got energetic right there, and I've got closed off right there. How am I going to do this? I'm going to ask questions. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to pry. And I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to ask you. And I'm going to get both answers. And in some way, they align. But in some way, they don't. Within 24 hours, She had him on board with me. And it was all about asking the questions and identifying that we share similar needs and wants and desires. He's just a little more reserved. He's the more logic one of the two of us, and I'm the more emotional one. And I've identified that in myself. But being able to have those conversations with your clients, that's huge. Because you may have just allowed that couple or friends realize this is not a good idea. Or, oh my gosh, we are more on the same page than we realized. And it just makes the process that much easier, setting those expectations up front. So let's break them down a little further. Social skill. Really, the focus here is the goal is to meet your client where they're at. Begin identifying their emotions, their emotional needs as they begin this process. And what I mean by emotional needs, yes, we are needy. Buyers and sellers are needy. They want information. They want to know what's going on. They want communication how they want it and when they want it. So identify those things right up front. In those early conversations, identify what is it that you need. What is the one trait you look for in a real estate agent that would separate you from the rest? Communication, expectations, understanding. What's the process? I need checklists. I need emails. I need updates on a daily basis. Might happen. Who's had it? The daily updates. It happens. But identifying those up front will allow you really good insight to who that client is and what they need through this process to be the best experience. And some questions to go about starting that and learning how to build that social skill in the emotional intelligence world. Story time. Learn all about them. Can't stress this enough. Have them tell you stories about their life. Have them tell you about their son's baseball game. If that's what's important, ask about it and have them tell you about it. Tell me how your last real estate transaction made you feel. Has anyone ever had a client that went through a terrible experience and now they're going into it again? I saw a hand pop up super fast. Yeah. And do you think they're probably nervous coming into this one? Oh yeah, they're really nervous. So knowing that up front, would that have made a world of a difference going into this transaction, knowing you could provide a higher experience than they had before? Yeah, so ask them those types of questions. Have them tell you stories. And lastly, what makes you most excited and nervous about this process? Find out both sides. If you know they're going to be nervous about something specific, sewer inspection, any inspection at all, it's scary. So prepping them ahead of time, having them tell you what their fears are going into this process sets you up for further success. You can prepare them long before it ever comes. It may never come. So even better, why not be ahead of the game? Build a relationship with them, learn everything you can. Motivation. The goal here is to uncover their why. As they begin this process, what's their why? Why are they here? What are they doing this for? So some ways to go about doing that. Ask the question, what is your primary reason you are wanting to buy a new home and or sell your current home? What's the story there? Tell me more. Why? Why is a huge question. If you don't use it enough, you're missing out. It's kind of like that game. Kids are younger and they play the why game with their parents. Why? Because I said so. Why? Because I said so. Why? Because I'm your mom. Use it. It's more effective than you realize. Pry for more. The more you get, the more leverage you have. Ask, what are you looking for in your next home? If you don't ask that question now, that's scary. Especially because if they're selling and they don't know where they're going next, that's a really stressful situation. Especially in quick markets where these can happen in very short timelines. Do they have their next plan? Do they know what they're looking for? Or are they kind of figuring it out as they go? Are you going to be driving them around a lot if they don't know what they're looking for? What elements are absolute requirements for your next home? Do they know? Have they thought about this? Is it the backyard? Is it that it's close to a school? It's not on a busy road, it's on a cul-de-sac. These are limiting factors that can impact the process. Dive into their motivations. Get more. The more you get, the better leverage you have. And then lastly, empathy. I can't stress this one enough. The goal is to uncover their motivation as to what's going on with them. Get into their vulnerabilities. Get into understanding their emotions. And the best ways to go about doing that is to really, again, dive into what makes you nervous about this process. It ties into a lot of the questions we've already talked about. But there's more. There's so much more. And we have so many of them to talk through. I challenge each of you to sit together and ask yourself these questions. How would I, if I were the client, want to be asked these questions? Because at the end of the day, emotional intelligence is a strategy. And if you don't have a system behind it yet, now you can. This is a great photo opportunity, by the way. If you want to pull your phones out, you will have access to these slides, including this one. But if you want this, take it now. This is an emotional intelligence strategy for the sales business, for your real estate business. They're broken down into 5 steps, basically, with further, deeper dives beyond that. First one is building the relationship. We just talked about that. Social skill. Complement the person's emotions, understanding them. Develop back pocket questions. Have a plan for how you're going to talk about the relationship, how you're going to learn about them. Find the need. People buy for their reasons, not yours, not mine, theirs. So speak their language, level with them, understand them as much as you possibly can so that you can build an effective system to it. Meet their needs. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. That is where those fall throughs can really happen, and that's where those lower scales of emotional intelligence can be seen. Be their problem solver. Solution, solution, solution. Focus on being their problem solver immediately. Help them discover how to be effective in their buying and selling process. Meet them where they're at. Learn about them as much as you possibly can so that as you work through these 5 steps of the strategy, building the relationship, finding the need, meeting the need, jumping the hurdles, and then asking for the sale will be so much smoother. Plan your scripts. Cannot stress scripts enough. Plan those back pocket questions. Enhance your own communication style. Take deeper dives into who you are, self-awareness. How do your emotions impact others? So how do we do that? We implement what we call CLEAR. In starting to leverage emotional intelligence, I encourage you all to start leveraging these questions based around CLEAR. Am I in a calm state of mind? Do I feel level-headed or neutral? Remember those neural hijacks? Am I in an emotionally charged situation? Do I have a planned approach to my response? And lastly, am I ready to positively and productively respond to the situation at hand? Before you react in any situation, whether good or bad, ask yourself these 5 questions. So then how do we improve from here? How do we keep improving? Take it down to care. Communicate. Open communication with your clients, with others in your network. Transparency. Keep them up to date. Let them know what's going on in the way that they want to know. Setting expectations, I cannot stress this one enough. Set expectations on day 1. And always remind them every time you talk what those expectations are. Keep them informed and keep them clear with clarity around what this process really looks like. Active listening. Some of you said that at the very beginning. What makes you the best? Actively listening. Put the phones away, the computers away, and listen. Don't be distracted by the conversations and other things going on around you. It's very easy to do. Focus on them. Let them know you're there for them. And remain objective. You are helping them through a very large process and sometimes a very confusing process because they don't know what you know. Not necessarily that they need to know, but maybe they want to know. So keep them in the know. Let them trust you with your knowledge. You have a lot of it. Leverage it in this communication. Leverage it in this transaction. Review all options and ensure at the end of the day that it's a win-win solution for everyone involved. Now, in the app, the second thing I mentioned that is in the app, there is a checklist for you all to take away as to how do I start implementing, understand, manage, and use. Please, please, please feel free to leverage this as you begin your journey down deeper into emotional intelligence. There is a checklist for all 3 sections. Leverage it. Dive into journaling, self-reflection. Leverage the clear questions that we just talked about. Meditation. No, it is not just the sitting on the floor doing There are other things. You can talk and meditate. That can be meditation. Find what that is for you. Implement it and start to see the impact it has for you. So what do we do? What do we go from here with? Well, use the checklist first. But second, take away these 4 growth opportunities. Number 1, mindful self-reflection. Yes, meditation. Yes, journaling. Set intentional time to learn about yourself and the experiences you've had. Ask your clients the experiences they've had and write them down and learn from them. Core value connections. Create spaces of understanding with yourself and your clients. Open with that vulnerability, empathy. Level with them. Connect with them on a deeper level. Active listening. Cannot stress this one enough. Focus on the conversations at hand. You will learn so much more. And lastly, delayed gratification. It may sound silly, but we are in a society that instant gratification is what everyone wants. Does anyone check their text messages as soon as they hit? Every time? Instant gratification. Delay yourself. It's very, very easy to get caught up and lose sight of that instant gratification and wanting to pick up the phone, wanting to jump on that next exciting thing. Delay it. There are studies that prove the impact on emotional intelligence. If you want to look it up, it's called the marshmallow test. They tested kids with marshmallows. You might have seen a TikTok trend around this recently with Skittles. Putting candy in front of kids and saying, I'm going to walk out the door. Don't eat it until I get back. If you wait, you get more. They have shown that those that could wait are way more successful in life, in business. There is real science behind this. Delay even the text messages. So just some additional resources for you all from the research that I've done and just some really great books. Again, these are in the slide deck. But just these ones, I will say the Daniel Goleman Emotional Intelligence is by far my favorite. I learned so much from it. There's a lot of science in it though, so just be prepared. And just a couple others for you all. So with that, I know we're right at 5 o'clock. So I just want to look at Jacqueline. Jackie, not Jacqueline. Jackie, do we have any questions?
We have one question.
Okay.
If I can read it. I guess I can use my glasses. What is the best way to be sure you are relating and sharing, but make sure you don't make it about your experience or make them feel like you're one-upping them?
Absolutely. That's a great question. With that, the biggest thing is tell them, my goal is to focus on you. And start to write down the moments you feel yourself overwhelming the conversation. And apologize. Let them know, this isn't about me. It's about you. I understand the experience that you're going with and I connect with you on a deeper level than you realize. and I want to learn what's causing that feeling. Dive into what they're feeling. Not just a story that you have that is a great way to connect with them, but to avoid the one up feeling, focus on their why. What's the motivation of the emotion? Get to the root of it. Just like in self awareness, it's detect, identify, and understand. Take those same concepts into the conversation with your client. Detect their emotion, identify what it is, have them tell you, and then dive into the depths of it. Ask more questions about them so that you don't feel like you're overrunning it. All right. With that, thank you all so very much. If you have an opportunity to leave me a response on how I did, I would greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your R4. Everyone's R4 in Orlando going.